You know, the Beatitudes are taught a lot. They really are. It's one of those go-to passages that if you've been in church any amount of time, you've probably heard it like 5 times or 7 times or whatever. But I want you to realize a couple things about the Beatitudes, and we're going to dig in a little bit today. The first one is that the Beatitudes were not written, I don't believe, for a picture of what we should be at some point. The Beatitudes were not written to say like, hey, you guys, I want you to come with this journey. We're going to go to this place. We're going to be more merciful. Let's go now. The Beatitudes were written for us to check ourselves in this moment. Almost as if I'm going to pick up a mirror, I'm going to shine it right to your soul, put it right up against your soul and say, are you merciful? The Bible was meant to show us where we are at in the moment. And that's different from saying we should be here. It's saying, where are you at now? But the question, are you merciful, is a little bit premature in this conversation. The first question I would ask you is, are you open to God's mercy in your life? Are you open to getting down on your knees in time of distress and sorrow and suffering and saying, God, would you have mercy on me, a sinner? God, would you remove this from my life? Would you give me this other thing in my life that I might find peace with you again? I think human beings tend to be a little bit prideful at times, tend to be a little bit arrogant at times. And it's hard for us to get on our knees, either realistically or metaphorically, and ask God for mercy. In one way or another, to be able to say, God, I am at the end of who I am. I'm at the end of my rope. I'm sorrowful. I'm losing it. I can't do anything else. Will you have mercy on me? And so the first question is, for us to show mercy to someone else, we have to be willing to receive it ourselves from God. In Psalm 51, you don't have to turn there, I'm going to read it for you. It's a psalm of David after he committed adultery with Bathsheba, and a bunch of other interesting things happen after that. And he's in one of the darkest places, I think, of his life, at least the top 3. And here's what he says to God: have mercy on me, O God. According to your unfailing love, according to your great compassion, blot out my transgressions, wash away my iniquity, and cleanse me from my sin. For I know my transgressions, and my sin is before me. Against you, you alone have I sinned and done what is evil in your sight. He was willing and able to be vulnerable before God. Not that God didn't know, but he was able to open himself up in that moment and say, God, I'm in the darkest, at least one of the darkest places of my life. Have mercy on me. And he doesn't just ask for God's love, his compassion. Those things are there, but that's only part of what mercy is about. The second part is God doing something about it. And what does David ask? Wash away my iniquity, cleanse me from my sin. We see God's mercy very clearly. So for you, are you open to God's mercy in your life? Are you at that place, or have you been at that place where you are open to receiving the mercy of God? Sometimes it's tough. It's hard to be that open. It's hard to share that kind of pain, even with the Lord. But yet we're called to that. And we know God will respond in his character to that place. The second question, as I've got my mirror up to your soul, is, are you able to show mercy to another person? Do you have that ability to show godly mercy to another person in your life? And here's the second part about the Beatitudes, is the Beatitudes are not meant to be taught in isolation either. I mean, we can't just pick one beatitude out and then just try and talk about it. The Beatitudes are progressive in the way they're written. You have to achieve one and then move to the next one. It's like the steps, right? If you do step 1, you get to go to step 2. If you do step 2, step 3, and all of those things. And I know that as you look at these in Matthew 5, you start to see the first 3 or so are the emptying of ourselves, the emptying of our pride and our arrogance. Blessed are the poor in spirit, blessed are those who mourn, and blessed are the meek. All of a sudden we realize we need to empty ourselves of who we are. And what's the next one? Once we do that, once we empty ourselves of those things that kind of allow us prideful and arrogant thoughts, the next one is, Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. It is only then that we're empty of ourselves that we can find the righteousness of God and that we hunger and thirst for it. And so once you have that hunger and thirst for righteousness, and God responds to that, and he's filling you up and taking you to that next step, then and only then are you able to show the mercy of God in a real way to other people. So as I point that mirror right at you, are you able to show mercy? Which means, do you have at least some of these things in your life already? Are you poor in spirit and have allowed God to make you rich? Do you mourn for other people? Are you broken for those who are hurting? Are you under the controlled strength of God? And finally, do you hunger and thirst for righteousness? Then and only then, at least as far as this passage goes, can we demonstrate the core character of God's mercy for another. So the second one is, the first one was, are you open to it? The second one, are you able to show mercy to someone else? And the final question, as we hold up this mirror right to you, is, are you demonstrating mercy to someone else in your life? Each one of you probably has contact with 100 people a day, maybe a little less, maybe a little more. But the reality is that some of those people are in pain, some are hurting, some are suffering, some are alone, some are in darkness, some are at the end of their rope, some have lost someone recently, some are struggling beyond what they feel like they can bear. Does your heart break for those people like God's heart broke for you? Does your heart grieve the pain of another person like God's heart grieves for you? And then when you feel that grief and that anguish over another person's suffering, do you have the strength and ability to step into that space and either give them something they need or remove something from their life that they might find peace? That's that picture of mercy. Are you demonstrating that in your life? And I would say it's easy enough for me to say, start at home. There are people in your house who are struggling with things you may not know about and that you may know about. God's called you to the ministry of your house first and foremost, then outside of that. So is there someone in your home who's hurting, who's suffering, who's in pain, who's lost, in darkness, whatever it may be, and is your heart grieved for them? Are you willing to step in and support them? Pray for their strength. Offer them support in your companionship. Offer them help in whatever they need. Are you willing to step in there and remove some burden from them that you can in order that they might find peace with God? So are you demonstrating mercy in your life? The Bible says, blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Now, I think this is, some versions that you might be reading will say, God will bless the merciful, or some of them say, like, one day God will bless those he's seen as merciful. But really, if you read this in the original language, what you're going to see is more like this. Blessed are those who have shown mercy, even in the past tense, or God will bless in the moment those who show mercy in the moment. It's really kind of like a present tense sort of thing, or even some would say slightly in the past tense, but in reality it goes back to the mirror. Blessed are those who are showing mercy. You will be blessed if you are showing mercy to people in your life. And that blessed comes in the second part of the verse, and it says, for they will be shown mercy. How many of us don't want to be shown mercy? How many of us, when we're in that dark place, require that we have mercy or we feel like we're just going to die? Blessed are the merciful,